How's it going, my fellow history scholars? Welcome back to the podcast where we talk about the unanswered questions of history and unravel the many mysteries about our past. Welcome, Jeff. Thank you for joining us again today. Jeff is the host of the Curse of Oak Island live stream podcast. And if you guys were there for part one of our interview, we began talking about the many theories surrounding Oak Island. Thanks for joining us again today, Jeff.
Oh, thanks for having me back. Yeah, this is pretty cool. I know we did a part one. It was a lot of fun. I had a good time with that. So glad to be back.
Oh yeah, for sure. I loved it. And Ian was with us last time as well. He is traveling currently, so he's not here with us. But we do have a few other interviews coming up within the week. We are planning to do one with Gretchen Cornwall on Friday. So
nice.
Stay tuned for that. And as far as interviews, stay tuned because we have some exciting stuff coming up. But I want to get into the major theories surrounding Oak Island, and specifically today we're going to get into a lot of the Knights Templar, the Rochester's, the Founding Fathers, and the Freemasons. And a lot of those are interconnected, and it's a lot of exciting stuff that I can't wait to talk with you about.
Yeah, there's so much to it. Yeah, there really is. You're gonna have you got all the different theories that you just mentioned, and the Rochester family. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that goes. That gets really deep. And you're having Gretchen Cornwall on. That's going to be a good one. She is wonderful.
I love her research.
Yep. Yeah, she's really good. I was just talking with her today. As a matter of fact, she was giving me a little hint about something I had. I questioned with her about the Templars when they were leaving, getting out of France. So. And I had to confer with her about something. I said, "Am I right on it?" She said, "Yeah, okay." So. She's wonderful.
And I read her secret dossier of the Knights Templar, the Sangreal, and I love the research that she did with that. And I can't wait to talk with her. I'll just leave it at that because a lot of the stuff that she's written about is super interesting.
Yeah, it is.
To say the least. But we can hop into the Knights Templar here, which is the first theory that we'll begin talking about today.
All right.
And I'm going to read a little thing here from oakislandtreasure.co.uk.
Okay.
And this is what they have to say about the Knights Templar. The Knights Templar have been linked to the mystery of Oak Island by many, primarily because historical records suggest that they had both motives and means to deposit treasure in the money pit. Compelling of all is their connection with untold wealth in the form of the Holy Grail. Using both their money and military strength, coupled with their sailing abilities, they sailed westward towards Nova Scotia. The arrival of the Knights Templar in the region is supported by the Xena Helper Map. It depicts the landmass of Nova Scotia or New Scotland with the figure of a crowned knight. Further evidence exists in the form of the Newport Tower in Rhode Island, the Westward Knight, and the lead cross that's found on Oak Island, specifically what we'll be talking about today as far as Oak Island. And the American Templar decided to hide the bounty, supposedly, and they did this by building a complex money pit on Oak Island and by engineering flood traps. The spot is marked in the form of Nolan's cross, with specifically the Glooscap head, which they believe is Henry Sinclair. So there's a lot there in that article that we could try to dissect. I mean, what do you think as far as the Knights Templar?
The Knights Templar is one of those kind of a romantic theory that a lot of us, and I'm one of them, I want to believe that they did come over to North America. It's well documented, as we mentioned in part one. It's well documented that they had left. Of course, they were being rounded up, or there was the big Friday the 13th, 1307, where they were many were killed and captured, but some got away, and it was from the King of France at the time. But anyway, and many got away. Well, they had about 18 ships on standby. And, as I mentioned before, they knew that something was going down. They had forewarning on it. And they had some ships on standby. Well, those ships left. The next morning, they were gone. And so the theory is that, they took a lot of their treasure and our religious artifacts that they had, loaded them up on the ship, and they took off. Now, the theory also goes that they didn't all go to the same place, that they broke up and went to different places. But one of those places is, again, we want to believe North America. They came over to North America. And I'm a believer of that. I do. I think there's enough evidence to say that they did, but we're still trying to piece that all together.
Yeah, for sure. And I find it interesting that this begins in 1307, but it doesn't really end until 1314. So there's this almost 7-year gap, and it's hard to believe that within the 7-year gap that some of these knights couldn't have escaped, especially since they were expert sailors, being able to sail back and forth to the Holy Land and throughout Europe, and being the first bankers. They were well connected with a lot of the powers and the rulerships and kings throughout Europe. So it's almost hard to believe that all of these Templars could have been systematically executed and that nobody survived. There had to have been at least a few people, no matter how small, that had managed to escape. And I think we definitely see this with a lot of the stuff that we come across on Oak Island, as well as getting into some of the stuff that we found in North America, specifically, like we were talking about, the Westford Knight, the Newport Tower, the HO stone, which they found on Oak Island, and the Templar Cross they found on, was it the Glooskap head, or it was a head of mainland Nova Scotia?
That one there was that was out at the Overton stone. That's the Overton stone right there on the lower left. That is out. It's close to it's in Nova Scotia. It's close to Oak Island, but it's up the coast a little ways. And I forget exactly. It's in Overton. I believe that's the name of the place, Overton. And that's where that is. So, and that's an interesting one in itself. Terry DeVoe had taken out the team from Oak Island out to take a look at that stone. And if it's true and it was carved back or chiseled back when Terry believes it was, it kind of depicts a meeting between the Mi'kmaq and what he believes the Portuguese. He said this particular cross is more of a Portuguese style Templar cross or cross of Christ through the Portuguese rather than just main Templar knights. So that was where he was getting all that information. And there's, because on that particular one, there's also the tobacco leaves on it. And then it shows the tobacco leaves, and then it shows a eagle feather, and then like a crescent moon is all part of it. So that's really interesting that they put all those together. So it was talking about a meeting, or maybe that's what he believes, that it's a meeting between the Mi'kmaq people and the first Europeans to come over and make contact with them, which we believe would have been the Portuguese, or he believes would have been the Portuguese. So that's a really interesting one too. And I don't know if they've been able to date it, exactly come out and date it. It's actually covered up now. They keep it protected on the property where it's at so that it doesn't get more deterioration from the weather. But yeah, really interesting stone that one is.
And I like that you brought up the Templars and the Micmacs, because I don't know if you can see it, but I brought up the comparison of the flags here. I don't know if you've heard about this theory.
I have.
The idea that they're almost a mirror image of each other.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think there's been some people that have said that that's not true, that it's not really their flag. I don't know, to be honest with you, because I had talked about that myself. And then I had one of the researchers came to me and said, no, it's not true. That's not the Mi'kmaq flag in reverse. So I don't know. I really, honestly, I'm not sure if that still holds water or not on that particular one. But that Overton stone is certainly interesting. And it certainly looks, I with my untrained eye, you look at it, it looks like old carving. It's not something that's been done in the last 100 years, I would think. But so it's hard to say. But I hope they can actually prove it. I'd love to see them actually prove that, because it means a lot.
Right. And besides that comparison, like you were saying, we have the Overton stone. Let me see if I have a picture of it here. Well, that's the Xena Helper Map. We can go back to that. But the Glooskap head, the idea of Nolan's Cross, that there's all these huge stones. And I think we might have talked about it a little bit last time. But that the shape of the giant stones and the shape of Nolan's Cross, these stones are massive. So
yeah, they are. They're big.
It's hard to believe that if this was deliberate, that they weren't putting these stones in the place they were putting them in place for a reason, because these stones are so hard to move.
Yep.
Being so big.
Yeah, they're huge, and it would have taken a lot of man and oxen hours, I would think, to get them put into place from wherever they would have got them from in the first place. But there are some really large boulders on this island, and then to take these and I mentioned this the other day was the fact that you take these large boulders and put them all into place. You're not going to do this just simply because you want to honor Christ by showing the cross. It's going to, I mean, that's great, but it's a lot of effort, a lot of people hours, and a lot of, like I said, with the oxen and everything else to try to do this and get them laid out exactly right. And then, for what? For for that alone? Or is it mean something else? And my belief is Nolan's Cross is significant. And again, this is just my personal feeling that it's significant to the history or the mystery of Oak Island. And that headstone right there that you see was actually right in the center, between the arms. And I think Gretchen, and she'll elaborate on this because that's part of her theory, that Nolan's Cross, and so she'll definitely take this to another level that I way beyond what I could do. But once you see that face on that stone, a lot of people say, "Well, it's just natural." But once you see the face and you really look at it, you can't unsee it. That's one of those things that you can't unsee it. As soon as I stare at it, the face pops out. It's pretty remarkable to me. And then there's also up in the right above the right eye is looks like what is a sword was carved into it. So, and that's one of those things up for interpretation. Yeah, right in that area right there. And so it looks like a sword when you get a really good look at that thing. So again, why would you have that head there carved that way, or that stone there carved that way, if it didn't mean something? That's
Yeah, exactly.
Was it supposed to be Christ's head? Okay, I don't know. Now her theory talks about actually, and again, she'll fill you in where I'll probably get it wrong if I tried to do it, but having to do with the head or the skull. They felt that they had the skull of John the Baptist, and that was supposed to I think that was supposed to be along the lines of John the Baptist, that face, I think, was there. But again, if I'm wrong, she'll correct that. But
well, I think that's a good idea, right? Because that the Knights Templar specifically pay homage to John the Baptist.
Right. Yep. Yeah, and that was something too that when they weren't exactly sure, but I know some of the relics that Carl Cookson and Hamilton White have for when I mentioned this to you earlier, the TV show the Discovery Channel of the Lost Relics of the Knights Templar, and they've got some artifacts that they believe could have depictions of John the Baptist on it. So one of the vessels that they have, and so that's really neat too. So John the Baptist was very important to the Templars.
Right, for sure. And that's one of the reasons they were persecuted, because they're supposedly worshiping this beheaded head that they carried around.
Yeah.
That probably wasn't John the Baptist, considering that would be thousands of years of decay. And
hard to
probably
say.
be nothing more than a skull at that point. But the idea of a severed head could tie back to John the Baptist, as we know.
Right, and the head was John the Baptist's head was taken off. That was one of the I think I've just listening to, or going through the Bible on that, and he was beheaded, and his head was served on a platter to the I think it was the queen, the daughter wanted that for she told her dad, he said, "You could have anything you want, you just name it." And she said, "I want John the Baptist's head on a platter." And so he had him in prison, so he had to do it. He cut his head off, and there it is. So the head was severed. We know that. If they actually had it, I don't know. That'd be a weird thing to have, though, wouldn't it? I mean, it's really artifact, I suppose. But but I know it did mean a lot to them. So
yeah, for sure. And I want to go back because I do want to touch a little bit on the Xena Helper Map. And what do you think about the Xena Helper Map? Because I believe she tied it into the Templars.
Oh yeah,
through the Rochester family, if I'm correct.
Yes. Yeah. That map, actually the one she had that was drawn up, I think it was actually dated 1347. She had two maps that she originally showed Rick and Marty. One of them was the map of Nova Scotia, And then there was the map of Oak Island. The map of Nova Scotia actually had some markings on it and showed right. You could see there in the drawing, and then it had right down there where Mahone Bay is, where the Oak Island is. They had Mahone Bay, and then they had a line out 46, 47. It said in Roman numerals 46 and 47. And so it showed right where Oak Island was on the map of Nova Scotia. And then she had another map of Oak Island, and right up in the top corner, it had the name Rochefoucauld. So that right there, and the Rochefoucauld family were very instrumental, or they were, you could say they were part of the Knights Templar as well. So there's a lot of, to say that they were there back at that time, that leads to that's Xena's map. I mean, that was her theory, that they came there long ago. And that would tie you right in with the Knights Templar. Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. And there's even supposedly ties to the Freemasons, and specifically the Founding Fathers. And we can get into a little bit more of that. I had it arranged to lead into a different topic, but I can skip some slides here if you'll bear with me in a sec. Yeah,
that Nova Scotia map was 1179. It shows Oak Island marked out in Mahone Bay, and it had those numbers 46 and 47. And then these are part of some Templar documents. And then in her book, they talked about the Rochefoucauld family taking a voyage, or Knights Templar taking a voyage in 1178 to 1180 over to Nova Scotia. So if that's true, then boy, they were there, long ago, before anyone else. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, and we have records that the Vikings went to the North American coast, or at least supposedly, because we see this in the Viking sagas that they made a voyage far to the western Vinland, as referenced in the Kensington runestone. Getting a little off subject, but if the Vikings couldn't make it over, who's to say that thousands of years later, because Vikings likely did it around 800 with Leif Erikson and Eric the Red.
Right.
So if they could have done it around the 800s, who's to say that the Templars couldn't have done it, especially with their expert sailing abilities?
Yeah, exactly. And you're exactly right. And the thing of it too is that they became, if I remember, and again, this, I know Gretchen will probably touch on this, and Alessandra Nadavari, she's another one, great researcher and author also. And I think that she was the one who was telling me about the fact that the Vikings became Christians, and then they changed to the Norse. And I think that was done by the folks in Scotland, and the Knights Templar. So they would have passed on any information that they had about this new world that they had discovered. I think that's how those in Scotland got the information in the first place, was from the Vikings. Again, my personal opinion on that, I don't have much more than other theorists telling me things like this to back it up. But so if that's the case, if they became Christians and then changed to the Norsemen, they would have passed on a lot of that information to them. That gave, oh, hey, guess what? There's a neat land that we've seen over, across the ocean over here. And we can tell you how to get there. I think that's where that all started right there. That's how they first knew about it. And again, that's just my opinion, but I believe that's what happened.
Right. And tying stuff in, because we went to a lot of different places there, but touch back on the Rochefoucauld. I'm going to read something from the History Channel, and this is how they connect the Rochefoucaulds. According to this theory, a French nobleman and naval captain named Jean-Baptiste Louis Frederic de la Rochefoucauld, that's a very large name, whose family had historic ties to the Knights Templar, was reportedly dispatched with the French Armada to Nova Scotia in the 1700s. In Season 5, Episode 10, The Sign of the Cross, historian Doug Crowell explained to the team that he found evidence in a library that the fleet led by Rochefoucauld was carrying treasure. And Xena Helper Map, as we were talking about before, mentions Rochefoucauld, and a ship's log reportedly mentioned bearing the vessel's treasure in a pit. So that kind of ties everything there together with the Rochefoucaulds and the Knights Templar.
And that's where I have to make that make a correction of what I had said when we did part one. when you were asking me about, I think it was one of the pirates, Drake,
Yeah, Sir Francis Drake.
Drake. You were asking me about Drake, and then I got off on this tangent, and I completely misstated that. And I think I was saying it was Charles Barkhouse that had the ship's log, and it wasn't. It was actually Doug Crowell. Doug Crowell found, just like you had just said, he found the ship's log and had it translated. I think it was in the Halifax Historical Society, I think is where he found it, or library, and then he brought it out and he's sharing it with the team. And again, yes, that was Duke D'Anville was in charge of this, coming back, and they were going to go and take Nova Scotia back from the British. I think that was 1746. I think it was right around 1746. And so on the way, and he had supposedly a large amount of treasure or something on the ship with him to help finance the whole the fight, the war, to go back and take Nova Scotia back. And they ended up having to get into a place where they had to, supposedly, and according to the ship's log that Doug was reading, they had to hide it. They didn't want it to fall into the hands of the British, so they wanted to hide it, and that's where they believe that they hid it on Oak Island, because of what that ship's log has said, something about dig a deep pit that enters from the ocean on an island of, I mean, it was, it all ties together with Xena's map. It really does. An island of oaks or whatever. It was really, it's hard not to connect those dots. I mean, it's pretty miraculous.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to bring up a comment here from somebody. Marilyn Rathwell, she was asking where in France the Rochefoucauld family is from.
Oh, man.
And I couldn't remember off the top of my head, so I was
I was trying to I wonder if I got that written down in my notes.
I believe that Rick and Marty did go to France, and on their way to France, they did go to one of the Rochefoucauld family castles.
Oh man, I've got that written down too. I know I do. The Chateau de Rochefoucauld. Chateau de la Rochefoucauld, but where I've forgotten where it's at. I'm drawn a complete blank at the moment, and we'll have to look that up. I don't know how many people you have watching, but there's probably one of them that knows out there. Give you the answer. They'll probably pop it up real quick. But obviously, a very interesting family, and they had ties to the Knights Templar. Strong ties to the Knights Templar.
Yeah, for sure. I found something. This is where the Chateau de la Rochefoucauld is, but I have no idea what that says in French.
Oh man, I'd probably tear that up pretty badly there trying to pronounce that.
But hopefully that helps you, Marilyn.
Oh, Charente, France. I think that's the name of that. I think that's it. Charente. Yeah. It's right down below there. It says Charente. La Rochefoucauld, Charente. Yeah, I believe that's where it's at.
Yeah, I couldn't remember. I knew they went out to France and that they visited the Rochefoucauld castle, and then they also went to Dome, France, and they went to the to the Templar prison to see the comparisons with the Lead Cross. Yep. And I find that fascinating, and I want to see what you thought about that, because I loved it. I loved that episode.
That was really, really good. And it was so funny because it was like a week after they were in France and went to that prison, and they saw not only that, but they also saw the menorah on the wall, and they saw that, and they saw the Lead Cross, or not the Lead Cross, but the cross.
Didn't they see a variation of the Tree of Life as well?
Yes, they did. Yes, you're right. You're exactly right. And then a week later, back on Oak Island, Gary Drayton gets the hit, and they dig up the Lead Cross on Smith's Cove. I mean, it was like a week later they found the Lead Cross, and Rick was looking at it. I don't know if you have a picture of that car. I might have one that I could probably share that picture of the wall in the prison. But you look at that, and if you look at it side by side with the Lead Cross, I mean, they're identical. They are identical. There you go. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, there you go. You're on the spot with this stuff. You got it. So
yeah, I'm jumping back in between my slides. A ton of things.
I do it all the time. I always tell people, sorry about this. Click, 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 and I flip through. But
keep spoiling stuff.
You see that right there, and you see that the first of all that the one arm is longer than the other,
Right.
and that's on purpose, and also the head is tilted slightly off
Yep.
center, and again that's on purpose. And then you look at the line that runs down like between the legs. There's that line, that ridge, yep, right there, and then same thing on the lead cross. They are identical. Now, how can you say? How can anybody say? And they had that lead cross dated. They dated it by taking samples, laser abrasion, I think they call it there, or it might be what they were calling it, but they actually, laser abrasion, I believe was, where they took samples of it. Then they checked those samples against all, and that's one thing with lead. They can check it with all known sources or mines, and they found that it was a closed mine that it was taken from back, and I think it was 14th century was the last time that the mine was used. Okay, so you know that lead was taken out from the 14th century or before, and it looks just like a cross carved into a wall by the Templar Knights in a prison in France, and it looks just like it. That's not a coincidence. I don't care. People will write it off, go, hey, you know, whoever, you don't know who dropped it, you don't know what, you know, whatever. And it's like, I'm not buying it. I think that's a Templar cross. Now, does that mean the Templars brought it there? I want to say so, but no, I guess it doesn't actually mean that the Templars brought it there. But and I had a little
just look at the comparisons, right? Exactly what you were saying with the one arm being longer and the head of the cross being tilted back.
Yep.
I just find that interesting. And then I forget who did the research. You can correct me. But the one researcher believed it was even connected with the goddess Tanit.
Oh, wow. Now that I don't know. I'm not sure on that.
I believe they did some research on it. Yeah, I'll have to ask her if she remembers.
She will probably know.
But I found that interesting too, because supposedly the Templars paid homage to the goddess Tanit as well.
I've heard that. Yeah, I that's one of the parts of it I don't know that much about. I can't comment on that one. But yeah, that's significant. And you know, I had my own little personal theory, knowing that they were, and I know that the Knights of Christ is a different, you know, an offshoot maybe of the, but I keep saying Knights of Christ because that's what they were.
Right.
And my theory on that, bringing that, Xena mentioned it. Now, Jan, thanks, Jan. That particular cross, my own personal belief on that particular cross is that if it is Templar, then the Templars, when they got to the island, and because the island meant so much to them, if they were using it to hide the artifacts, at least for a temporary purpose, they would have made it to where they were going, and they would have blessed the ground. My personal thinking is, because if somebody lost this, if this fell off their chain or in their pocket, or if they had it on a chain that they were wearing in their pocket or around their waist or whatever, yes, it could have been lost. There's no doubt about that. You can't say otherwise. But it is my thinking that they would have arrived on this new land, and they would have knelt down and prayed and left this as a token of their, you know, belief system on the island. That's, you know, and it was found then later on by Gary Drayton. Now, is that true? Have no idea, but that's just, I feel like that is what happened, but I could be completely wrong. It might be far-fetched, but it makes sense. I mean, that's what they would have done. They would have gotten down and they would have knelt down and they would have prayed when they arrived. And maybe, just maybe, they would have left that cross there as that, and part of that prayer to make the land sacred. So I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
Something I want to believe, but it is important, and it's not a. It's a significant. It's the most significant find I think they've had on the island yet.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then that with the combination of the two bones that they supposedly found, one dating back to Europe and the other Middle Eastern.
Yep, exactly.
I found that super interesting as well, because I'm like, there's puzzle pieces that are trying to line up, but we don't have 100%. Clarification with it yet.
Yep. And why would they, like I mentioned on part one, you know, they wouldn't have buried somebody that deep underground. Those were found over 100 feet down, those fragments of bone. You're not going to bury somebody down there that deep. You know, absolutely. So
there had to have been something that was going on underneath
the surface. Either there was theories about they took a couple of guys, they chained them up down there or whatever, and There's been no evidence of that. Did they die because during the search or the digging operation? Who's to say? But yeah, Middle Eastern and European, I think, was the other one, and they dated about that old date too. I think, if I remember correctly, but. Again, a very, very interesting stuff, and the shoe leather, and just so many things that they found that deep underground. It's just not. It doesn't make any sense. Why was this stuff down there?
Right, and I'll bring up another comment here. My dad's actually watching, and
I love that.
He brought up something that was interesting.
That's from my time. That car right there.
Yeah. Well, he actually owns that car. He has.
Really? Yeah, that's awesome. Firebird, man. Ooh, yeah, that's awesome.
He brought up that considering the length they went to hide the treasure, do you really think that it could have been something as important as the Holy Grail and the Ark of the Covenant? That's a little bit what we were talking about. If they went through such great length to move all these stones and to go across the ocean to make this new Jerusalem, what was the purpose? And with all the effort that they put in to conceal these symbols, like we see, and Dome France, that they literally carved this stuff with their teeth and fingernails.
Yep.
There had to have been a reason, and maybe they had something that was of great significance that we have yet to figure out.
Yep. Yeah, that's if they did have those artifacts, and it is. There's a lot of, again, that's one of those things that they, some people believe they didn't, that they didn't have the Ark of the Covenant or the Holy Grail or any of that kind of stuff. They did at one time because they went there looking for it. They went to the Dome, and they went there looking for it. At one point back when they first got started. And so if they would have taken possession of it, or at least been guarding it there for a while in Jerusalem, then, to protect it. And then before all heck broke loose there, they went down and maybe took it out of there for safekeeping. If that's the case, where would they have taken it? And that's the big mystery. Where did it go? Did it go to Oak Island? We just can't make that determination. I know there was one of them that, one of the theorists, I think it was Jeffrey Irving, was on the island, and that was his theory. And his theory was that Christopher Columbus brought over the Ark of the Covenant. He said, at least temporarily hid it on Oak Island. And that was his theory. And Columbus had ties to the Knights Templar as well. So, I mean, that's an interesting guy. His father-in-law, I think, was a Grand Master, I think, of the Knights Templar. So Christopher Columbus's father-in-law,
right? I believe he was connected with the Sinclairs through his wife's lineage.
Exactly. So there you go. With all these different connections, it's really hard to say that.
Right.
And so did Christopher Columbus bring it over? I don't know. I think that it could be. You just can't rule that out, I suppose. That's another one of those interesting tidbits.
Right, and again, that's why I'll clarify. We're talking about the theories and not the facts.
Yeah, we have no proof on any of this stuff. But I tell you what, and you got to hand it to the folks like Jeffrey Irving and Gretchen and
the research is phenomenal.
James McQuiston and Corian and Christopher, all these guys that have done this research. Oh my goodness, you got to hand it to them for digging through all the stuff to try to find these facts.
Oh, yeah,
or we wouldn't know any of this stuff if it hadn't been for them guys. So, but yeah, that's Jeffrey Irving's theory, was that Christopher Columbus brought it over.
All right, I'm going to transition here, and I want to get into, if I can find the slides, because like I said, I've jumbled them all up now. So I want to get into the Shepherds of Arcadia, because a few weeks ago you had on Corian.
Yep, and Corian Mole and Christopher Morford. Yeah,
did you guys mention the Shepherds of Arcadia? Because I only saw tidbits of that conversation.
Yeah, they did. This was initially, this was when they were on, I think it was season 7, episode 8 and 9, I think it was. They were on the island, or actually, both of them actually were on the island. That's where they met. I always thought that they knew each other prior to this, and they were researching together, but they actually met each other on the island. Because they were both working on companion, theories with this. But, the Shepherds of Arcadia was interesting because of the writings that are on the actual, on the tomb. They're looking at a tomb, what looks like a tomb right there. They're all looking at it, and on the side of it, it said something about en route to Arcadia.
In Arcadia Ego.
Yes, thank you. Yep. And so their theory was that they that led to Acadia, which was Nova Scotia, prior to it being called Nova Scotia. I believe it was called Arcadia, or Acadia. And so that was, one of I think it was Nicholas Poussin had done these paintings, or had done the one on the right. The other one, I'm not that familiar with that particular one, but yeah, there he is there. And again, one of those guys that like to paint in a lot of different interesting things into his work that you had to decode. So much of it, and like even on his finger in that picture there, on his finger, he's got like a Masonic ring, I think, on his finger right there. Yeah,
I can't tell if it's Masonic or not.
yeah,
But yeah,
and how they use the pentagram alignments to line up everything that was on, and that was something they did for to make it appealing to your eye when you looked at something. But it also had some meaning that they could add in with that pentagram. And they used that pentagram, and then they ended up they showed, they made their case of the Shepherds of Arcadia painting, and then they took that same pentagram and they laid it over Nolan's cross and came up with a couple of points on in the swamp where, there are points of interest. So I think they're going to be coming back around again. And then they got some alignment stuff that they were talking about from Jerusalem to, the Palace of Versailles in France, and then from there on to Oak Island, and some really interesting things how that lines up with Nolan's Cross. The line is directly down the line of it's the menorah on the ground. Anyway, but yeah, they got some really good stuff. Those guys. That's two more you should probably ask if you want to have them on your show.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool. I'll have my summer booked for sure.
Yeah. But some of the things to point out, that they pointed out on there, they were believing that the lady in the yellow on the right is actually depicted a Venus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. And then also in the guy in the red, she's got her arm on him. That would be Mars because he's wearing the red.
The color correlation.
Yeah, and then so that's this a lot of little things that drawn into this. And if you notice his arm, the shadow of his arm on the tomb wall, right in the very middle, the shadow right there, that shadow going down, that doesn't look like an arm, does it? I mean, if you look at it, it looks like a sickle. And if you get it closer, check it out when you get a different picture of it, you get a bigger one you can look at, but you'll see that's not, if he's that important of an artist, he's not going to make that mistake of not making that shadow look like somebody's arm. It looks like a sickle. Now, what does that mean? I don't know.
Right,
but
unless he just got lazy.
Yeah, you're there. Okay, yeah. Did he just get lazy? Just okay, there, I'm done. I'm got to get out of this thing. But so there's a lot of little symbolisms all around his paintings, just like with the Sir Francis Bacon and all that kind of stuff. They got a lot of decoding that goes on in these things. It's really interesting.
Right. And well, we know other artists were doing the same thing. We know that Da Vinci was hiding symbols supposedly in his paintings as well, and doing the same color correlations as we see here with Nicholas Poussin and the Shepherds of Arcadia, the red for Mars and the yellow and blue for Venus. So it's not something that stands out because a lot of artists were doing the same kind of practice. It was a way to make your mark and express yourself in these paintings.
Right. Yep. Yeah, there's another painting. I think that one you showed where it shows Nicholas Poussin. Yeah, and it's right behind him on the painting. That's not the one that's directly behind him, but the one that's behind that. That lady, that's the Venus in that first picture. Yeah, you can't see her, but there's a picture of her again right there. And she has on the top of her, I don't know if it's a scarf or whatever she's wearing on her head, has another eye on it on top. There's like two eyes, the eye on her side of her face because it's a profile, and then there's another eye up there, and it's the same lady that's in the other. So she's important. That's that lady is. I'm not, and again, thinking is maybe it's Venus, but she's definitely important, or he wouldn't have used her again. The same person. So she means something to him. and he's trying to portray that out. So really, it's again, this is like Jake Roberts. He's so into this stuff, and I'm going to have Jake on my show next, actually in 2 weeks. But he just did a nice little thing now tonight. He's got the Ghost of Bacon YouTube page and his website or Facebook page also, and his decoding. He does that decoding, and he just blow your mind if you gotta pay attention.
Yeah, is he the same one you were saying that did the Fama Fraternitas?
Yes,
the Rosicrucian?
Yeah, that's him. Yeah, he just did another one tonight, looking at a plaque of Shakespeare.
It's amazing all the symbols that you can decode in these things.
It's crazy, the symbolism in there and how you cipher it, and he knows all that stuff. It kind of loses me. You really got to pay attention when he's talking, but. Anyway, but they encoded so much stuff in here that you really got to look at it closely and you're still sure to miss something.
Oh yeah, there's
that one there on the left. They talk about the Gold River. I think that had something to do with the Gold River.
Yeah, I did have some research pulled up here.
And, go ahead.
I had something that was. Yeah, I had something that was mentioning just what you were saying there, actually, and it's kind of long, so I'm. Pick the specific section that mentions that, but it's talking about the Metis washing at the source of the Pactolus, and I probably butchered that, but that's this painting right here. Mm-hmm. And it's this legend of King Metis of Phrygia, and according to the legend, a satyr granted Metis a wish for the ability to turn everything that he touched into gold. Unable to eat or drink as a result of his new ability, Metis prayed to the Greek god Dionysus to reverse the satyr's work. Dionysus ordered Metis to bathe in the Pactolus River, and doing so, the Phrygian king cleansed himself of his affliction, depositing gold dust into the riverbed in the process. And Corrigan Mole puts forth the theory that this is a reference to Nova Scotia's Gold River, which leads to Mahone Sway in Nova Scotia.
Yep. Yeah, interesting stuff. Yeah, because and that's why they call it the Gold River, because it floods into or drains into Mahone Bay. Which is right there by Oak Island. So really how that all ties together is really pretty interesting.
Right. And I'm going to have Scott and Janet on in a few weeks here. And Janet wrote a book called America, Nation of the Goddess. And she compares these ideas of how there's all this symbolism and a call back to this classical mythology. So the idea that a Greek legend could be present in Nova Scotia is not a far-fetched idea.
Not really, no. Nope.
And then I believe of the Gold River, and I didn't do too much research, but I do want to mention it. They found that castle supposedly, and I believe it was a few seasons back.
Yep. Yeah, that's Alessandra Nadavari. Her and her husband owned the property where that is on, and they found there is some foundation stones that was actually uncovered by the former owner of the property. When she was digging a garden, and she found these large stones under the ground, and she started to uncover them, and she tried to get people to come out and take a look, and everybody was, there's nothing to see here. There's nothing to see here. Well, and there's an old well on the property as well. And then they found a stone. Alessandra and her husband did. They found a stone that had a very worn down, what looks like the Templar Cross, the cross pate, and it looks like it to me. I mean, it takes a moment to look at it, but once it's pointed out, then it's one of those things you can't unsee, because you see it. I see it as soon as I look at the stone now, and they actually had to take that stone and remove it from the property because they were afraid somebody was going to come by and steal it, because people can drive by on the road right there all the time, and here's this stone sitting there that was on the show. She's got a very interesting. That's another person you should probably reach out to see about coming on your show, because she has a lot of history about Acadia, the Mi'kmaq people, and her property that she has up there. Really, really interesting historical information. That she has a lot of it. She's very good with that. So, but yeah, she has that property up there, and unfortunately, she is not allowed, permitted wise, to get permits, I think, to actually do an excavation of that site. So she's kind of hamstrung in being able to do anything there. And again, that's one of those things that she'll have to elaborate on. But yeah, she can't. I don't know that she's not allowed to go dig it up and say, hey, look what's here. And that's unfortunate, really unfortunate, because it's it's definitely it looks like a foundation, and it means something. It's history. Come on, let's find out what it's all about, right? I mean, that's
Yeah,
what.
for sure.
So yeah, so you'll have to reach out to her. That she'd be a great one to have on your show. She's got a lot of information.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And archaeology does not pick the spot where modern civilization builds upon. So a lot of these sites end up on like people's properties. I read an article not that long ago that they found some underground Templar caves of somebody's backyard.
Yep,
Actually.
Yeah, I just heard about that.
So our modern construction stuff just builds right over these ancient sites, and oftentimes it leads to destruction, or we can't even excavate these sites that could be so life-changing and profound to the historical record.
Yep.
So it's really upsetting.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And a lot of times you run into some difficulties because people don't want, there might be people in higher places, I'll just say, call it higher places, that don't want you to change what's known. They don't want anything else to be known.
That's the other problem.
This is the way it is. And as we know in wars, the victor always sets the history. So they don't want things to change. This is the way it is. Let's leave it alone. No, we want to know the truth. We want to know what really happened here. So let's, and that's what an archaeologist, I just had Aaron Taylor on the show, and Aaron Taylor is a fantastic archaeologist. He deals in facts. He deals in what he digs up, and you dig up all these pieces and parts and things that you find underground, or if they're not just, like coal or charcoal or whatever, you piece all the stuff together to tell a story. And so why not allow that to happen? Because, if it's going to change American history, which a lot of the stuff on Oak Island could, if it becomes true, we want to know this. We have a right to know, so. But like you said, the victor always sets the history, right? Writes the history books.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we have a little bit time left here, and I want to get into the founding fathers, and then obviously their connection to Freemasonry.
Yeah.
But now that all of the founding fathers were Freemasons, for clarification, but there were definitely a few interesting ones. And the Masonic joke is, did you know George Washington was a Freemason?
Yes, as a matter of fact. And so that's another one, the founding fathers, and another guy, and again that kind of ties in with Xena also. That was another theory that was, and I think Court Lindahl actually started this one on Oak Island, as far as Oak Island is concerned, and another fantastic researcher, Court Lindahl. He had the founding fathers, basically that's what they were calling it, the founding fathers theory, and it kind of stemmed a little bit from Xena's map and Louis Alexander Rochefoucauld. And there we go with the Rochefocaulds again. And that's the thing, is that and again, I'll step away and I'll come back real quick, but the whole thing about the Knights Templar, not only do I want to believe that they were there and in North America, but you talk to many of the theorists, there are several of the theorists who believe the same thing. So if you've got several theorists, you got, like the Marie Antoinette, you're like, I don't know about that one. But if you have several theorists that are all pointing towards the Rochefoucauld family and also the Knights Templar being in North America, it's not just one that's talking about, there's several talking about it. So that's what makes it, in my mind, it makes it more tangible. And with that said, and Louis Alexander Rochefoucauld, the son of Duke d'Anville, he was associated with those two gentlemen right there.
Right. And I wanted to get into it because exactly like you said, History wrote an article, Top 21 Theories about Oak Island. And I've referenced this a few times throughout the episodes we've been doing. But they compare that in season 6, episode 22, there was research done that says American founding fathers Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson both had connections to the Rochefoucauld's son, Louis Alexander Rochefoucauld, like we were talking about. Lindahl and Kennedy raised the possibility that Louis Alexander told the prominent colonists about the treasure so they could finance their war efforts against Great Britain. And I find that specifically fascinating, that this idea that the Templars they think that the Templars are associated with the Freemasons, and that has yet to be completely solidified. But if it's true, and a lot of these founding fathers were Freemasons, like Thomas Jefferson, like Benjamin Franklin, then the idea that they could have used this call back to the Templars' treasure to finance their war in America, I find that extremely fascinating.
I do too, and I have, that's one of the theories. And I've reached out to Court. I've talked to Court. He's part of our group, and I've talked to him several times in chatting and stuff like that. But I've reached out to him and said, we got to have you on the show again and talk about some of the stuff to get more clarification on it. But there's so many ties. I do believe that of course, they're going to need to have some sort of money to finance the war, right? And what better place to get it? And that they knew about it because of the ties between Louis Alexander Rochefoucauld and these two gentlemen here, Franklin and Jefferson. So they obviously knew at least about the theory that there was gold up there or there was treasure up there. And I think at one point, I think the Nova Scotia was supposed to be the 13th colony. I think they were supposed to have established a 13th colony in Nova Scotia.
I did hear about that theory.
Yeah, and so again, and this is, I know I'm kind of picking pieces from different theories, but Nova Scotia was supposed to be the 13th colony. They gave up on that idea, and they ended up taking a state that was Vermont and New Hampshire, splitting it in two and making those two. So they got their 13th rather than using Nova Scotia. So Vermont and New Hampshire was one state at one time, or one colony, and they split it in half and they called it two different states, and there they got their 13. 13 again being very important to them, that particular number. Right. And then they also talked about Washington's flag, which was it had the tree on it, right, with 13 branches on each side. So you had, and that was the appeal to heaven flag is what he called it. So 13 was a very important number. And that same, and again, this is one of these stones that they found. I don't know if you ever had a picture of this one, but there was a stone up there. I think it's called the Evans Stone, is what they gave it a name of later on. The Evans Stone they found on Oak Island has that tree, and it's carved onto the, yes, there you go. The appeal to heaven. There it is right there. Yep. And so the 13 branches on it, that same type of a tree is carved onto a rock on Oak Island. And Evans, later on, the guy who found it put his name, he carved his name next to it too. The tree is actually sitting sideways, and he wrote his name across the side of it, and that's why they call it the Evans Stone. But it has that tree. Now, was that tree carved back then, or did Evans do it? You can't be sure now after all this time, but that's something that's very significant as well. So also the slipway and the U-shaped structure that they uncovered, Dan Blankenship had originally uncovered the U-shaped structure. They ended up uncovering it again because they wanted to find it, and they were looking for the flood tunnels in Smith's Cove, and they uncovered not only that, they found that slipway. So they uncovered the slipway, they uncovered the U-shaped structure. They actually had took some wood samples and have it dated, and it dated to a time period just before the War of Independence. So was that some sort of a base? Those were, in my opinion, they were used. That was a military, the U-shaped structure and that slipway were used at military time, by probably the British Navy. But they dated to 1746, right around that same time frame. And so, it's very interesting that all that falls into place, doesn't it? And that's why exactly. I want to believe that it. And that's the theory that I kind of lean toward. That's why I'm saying I want to believe that that's what happened. That they knew that treasure was there. They went there to go get that treasure and use it to finance the war. But do we know? I wish we knew for a fact that was the case. That's why I was saying earlier on part one, I was saying, well, I'm not so sure the treasure is still there. Maybe a portion of it. I
No,
want to.
that's my stand on it too. And
Yeah,
again, we're talking about theories, not the 100% fact. But
right.
like you were saying, I think that it's definitely there might have been something there at one point, but if it is still there and they haven't been able to find it with all the excavation and stuff that they've been doing, then I don't know if they'll find it.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, the thing of it is the last episode of the season, and I'll try to make this real quick, but the last episode, or last two episodes of the season 8 that we just finished here, had Dr. Ian Spooner talking about, he took the water samples from different wells around on the eastern end of the island, and one of the well samples from 3 different wells that were all very close. There, 2 of them right at the Money Pit area, and one was just a little bit to the southeast of the Money Pit area. And they found traces, very significant traces of zinc, copper, and silver, which is the 3 elements that go up to make silver of that time, silver coins and whatnot of that time, where you had those 3 elements in it. And they found significant parts per million of this in the water. Now, silver is one of those that will degrade. It will start to, let its material start to go out in the water. Where gold won't. So they can't do that with gold, but they certainly did. And they found significant amounts in C. I think it was C1 was actually one of the wells that they took. Well, it was one of the wells they took the sample from, and then they found silver. So does that mean that it's still there? Could be. And it really, he was very adamant that it's still there. So I could be completely wrong. And I hope it is. I hope the treasure is still there. So that was a very significant find, and they kind of left us hanging on that, at the end of season 8, going into season 9 of the Curse of Oak Island. So we'll see what that.
It's very much an Oak Island thing. They always leave you hanging.
Yes,
so
exactly. Right. The cliffhanger for next season. Yeah, that's it for sure. But yeah, I definitely like the whole the financing of the war of independence. And using those funds that would have been on Oak Island. And that's why I think a lot of it's gone. If they used it, we'll see. Founding Fathers, that's a good theory. I like this one. I really do.
I love the Founding Fathers.
Yeah, exactly. And it makes total sense because in many of the Knights Templar, it's one of those theories that we talked about. Just some people say that the Knights Templar became the Freemasons. I don't know. I'm kind of on.
We don't have 100% proof yet.
Yeah, exactly.
As much as I'm sure the Templars and the Freemasons would want that connection to exist.
Yeah.
Especially the Freemasons coming from that background. Mm-hmm. You want that connection to exist, but until it's completely proven, then all we can say is speculation.
Right. It's just another theory. But you think that they all knew each other and there was ties together, and one of the things that I said that if the Knights Templar did escape from France and they went up to Scotland, and some of them, not all of them, because they went into the ships, the 18 ships they figured the ships went in different places, but if some of them went up to Scotland and then left from Scotland and come over to the New World, then if they went to Oak Island and all that, if they're hiding, they're not going to say, hey, we're still the Knights Templar and here we are over here. We're in this new world over here. Come and get us. They're going to change who they are. They're going to change their name. They're not going to continue to call themselves the Knights Templar. So did that evolve into the Masons? I don't know. I don't know. That's one of those that's open for interpretation, I guess.
Right. It's a never ending debate. And
where did they go from there?
Just like you were talking about La Rochelle, Rosalind Chapel, Scotland. Yep. The whole connection between those two. And then I'll get into one more thing before we close our episode here. And it's connected with the Founding Fathers. Mm-hmm. And then this is coming from oakislandtreasure.co.uk. And I found this fascinating. We'll see if you have heard anything about it. But this is what they say. The strange markings reportedly carved on the oak adjacent to the pit can be seen to invoke Masons' marks, inscribed signs by which Masons are identified. The 3 alleged discoverers of the pit can be seen to represent the 3 worthy sojourners, where Daniel McGinnis represents the principal sojourner, known for discovering the secret vault and the Royal Arch degree of Masonry. In such a ritual, the aspirant is lowered on a rope through a succession of trap doors. It does not take much to recognize the similarities in this act with the workmen who were on occasion hauled up and down the money pit shaft. And then they could go on to compare a lot of the tools, and this is quite a stretch, a lot of the tools that they used in the early excavations to a lot of the working tools of masonry.
Wow. No, I'm not familiar with this one at all. That's very interesting.
Well, I found this one fascinating because
Yeah,
we
it
obviously
really is.
had Danny McGinnis, Anthony Vaughn, and help me with the third name.
Smith.
Yeah.
Well,
We
originally,
had
yeah.
Smith. Supposedly
Or was
Samuel
it Ball?
Ball.
Yeah, was it
Yep.
really Samuel Ball and it got changed?
That's for
I don't
last
know.
episode. Make sure you go listen to that one too if you haven't.
Yeah,
We
that was
talked
on
about that.
part one. Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah, for sure. I don't know. But yeah, I have not heard of this. The Royal Arch, what does that say? Masonry?
Yeah, Royal Arch and Masonry. I know the logo's covering up.
Wow.
But
That's very interesting.
I'm familiar with the Mason side, and that's probably why I take a love towards that a little bit more. And basically, the Royal Arch is a chapter that you join after taking the initial first 3 degrees.
Okay. All right.
So a lot of people are familiar with Scottish Rite and the idea of the 33rd degree.
Mm-hmm.
Dan Brown, Lost Symbol,
Yep.
he touches on that.
Yep.
But the other side of that would be the York Rite, and there's several other bodies of Shriners and stuff. But I found the connection to the Royal Arch Masons extremely fascinating, and the comparison that all this underground tunnels and the stuff that they were doing under Oak Island may be symbolic of the secret vault.
Yep, that's very true. Huh, interesting. And and that's one of the things that Gretchen, I think that when she was on Oak Island the very first time, she was talking about the Nolan's cross and taking the cross. If you scaled it down and you held it upside down, and then you put it into the, into the money pit area, down the money pit, and then the cross coming over. So instead of going straight down to the bottom of the money pit, that's where the chapel, the vault would be. I was going to say the chapel vault. But you would actually go to where the headstone is in the center of the arm, and then go off to the side on the short or the long arm side of the cross, because you flip it upside down and you come down the money pit when it's scaled down. And then so the vault would actually be over on the side, not down the main shaft, but over to the side off the end of the arm. So, and you were just showing this. It made me think of that when you were showing this, lowering somebody into the different levels you called it, but this is referring to the different levels of the being a Mason, right? That's what this is depicting, the different levels.
Yeah,
that's really cool. Yeah, I hadn't heard of this.
I've not taken the Royal Arch chapter yet, so.
Oh, so yeah, okay. So you're.
I know a little bit, but not enough to be a definitive source.
That's pretty interesting. So you're obviously a better authority on all that than I am, for certain. That's really neat.
Yeah, I found that fascinating, and we have the 3 discoverers, like we were talking about, the 3 principal sojourners, the idea of the vault, and
so what's on the picture on the left? You got the 3 triangle. Looks like the 2 tables, and then there's the thing right in the center. What is that? What does that mean?
I believe that's the sacred name of God, and
okay.
There's got to be some Mason out there that'll correct me if I'm wrong, but that's supposedly what you find when you descend through the secret vault. This is sacred name of God, because Masonry doesn't refer to a specific name of God, simply calls him the great architect.
Yes.
And supposedly in the Royal Arch, that's where you discover the true name of God.
I see. Okay.
Wow. And then that's the Hebrew on that triangle in there.
Yahweh, or
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Well, that's all I had, unless you had anything else to add on. And
no, we kind of covered some of the theories, and again, like I was saying, that the Knights Templar being, I think they went around on Oak Island. They went around on the final episode when they were in the war room there, and they basically asked. I take that back. This was on the drilling down right there at the end, and he went around and he was asking the team. Matty Blake was. He was asking the team, about the different theories, and he said, "Which one do you want it to be? Which theory would you like it to be, and which one do you think is the more likely of?" And most everybody said they would like it to be the Knights Templar.
Right.
You'd like it to be the Templar. And could it, what is more likely in my mind, the whole, who put the money there? I don't know. Then James McQuiston is another good researcher and author that you may want to talk to, because he's got a lot of stuff, and I kind of like what he has going on too. And it kind of could very well tie into how the actual some treasure got on the island through the Scottish, um, and the Sinclairs and all that, and got over to the island. So how did the money get there? We don't, or the treasure get there. We may not be definitive on that yet, but where did it go? And that's where I like the whole independence, the War of Independence on that. And there's also a little tidbit that's coming up too, is that there's a couple teams that are working on the Knights Templar maybe moving further. And this is something that you and I are kind of talking about as well, that the Knights Templar, if they did make it to Nova Scotia, did they then make their way on through into different parts of North America? Right. And Team Templar North America is a group that's working on that, headed up by Wayne Murphy, and Gretchen is part of that as well. Nice. But I don't think they can talk about it right now. There's particular reasons for that, but there is mounting evidence that they found over in Wisconsin that could be leading to the fact that the Knights Templar have been there. But there's other stuff around. We talked about the well,
that's close to home for me, so that's definitely something I'd want to
see. Yeah, so information on. So that's something that'll be I've had a couple episodes on my podcast about that. There was one that we just did with we actually had Carl Cookson and Hamilton White, the two guys from the Lost Relics of the Knights Templar, and Wayne Murphy, and they're working together now. So interesting stuff that may come of this here real soon. Yeah. Coming up, hopefully real soon. Anyway, but again, we talked about some of the other stuff that could lead to the Knights Templar being in North America. There's the Westford Knight, for instance, and the Newport Tower. I don't know. You had a picture of that, the Newport Tower, and I'm just not. I want that to be Templar, but I'm not convinced.
You're not convinced?
I'm not. I wish I was. I really do. I want that to be Templar, but there's evidence that it could have been built by Benedict Arnold, and it was a windmill.
Right. So that's the other popular idea.
Yeah, that's the popular theory, that he built that back around 1677 or something like that, somewhere in the late 1600s. But is it was that I think that was the date anyway, but I could be wrong. But he did he? I don't know. I'd like it to be Templar because it certainly looks like some of the stuff we've seen over there, but I don't know. And that HO stone, I mean, that's another thing. Yeah, there's a windmill right there that they said it's like that.
Yeah, that's the popular theory, that they believe it might be one of those New England windmills.
I don't know. I want it to be Templar. I really, really do.
You might have to listen to the interview we do with Scott then and see what you think with that.
Yep, there you go. There you go. He's going to be the one, because he actually did an episode. I think he was talking about that.
Right.
So, and he believes it's Templar, right? Does he link it to Templar?
For sure. Yeah. This and the Kensington Runestone and the Westford Knight are some of his
the Westford Knight, I think, is. I mean, that's you can't really give that to. Yeah, there it is right there on the right. Yeah, you can't really.
I put the plaque now there too.
It's
of the
just too. I don't know. I can't attribute it to anything else, quite honestly. I mean, what's a knight like that doing in North America?
Right. Well, originally it's called the Westford Sword because it was like a faint carving of a sword. So even with that, I think it definitely could be Templar with all the other connections we've been talking about. That it's a possibility it could be Templar. Yeah, but that stone's just so weathered.
Yeah,
that it is. Hard. You can almost make anything out from it.
Yeah, that's true. It is. It's really weathered, but
I definitely think it could be.
But you're right. The sword is pretty prominent still. So yeah, that's an interesting one there. And then they said that it could be, the grave of one of the knights that died on their excursion as they were making their way, into North America. And that HO stone up there, that cross in between the H and the O, that is, also used. I think they found that was on a shield in a Knights Templar cathedral or a church over in France, and it was on a shield of a soldier, of a Templar, or of a Knights Templar. That same cross with the 4 dots around it on each of the four corners was actually on the shield of a Knights Templar commander, I guess. So again, what's that doing on a stone in Oak Island? And unfortunately, they blew that stone up. I mean, it had all these other pieces to it, and they blew it up because they figured, oh, the treasure's underneath it. So they couldn't move it, so they blew it up. And then, come on, guys, it's like this piece, of history right here. It could give you so many clues, and you blow it up. I mean, come on. But again, that cross was very symbolic to some Knights Templars, different sects, I think, and so and again, what's it doing on Oak Island? Why is there a stone like with that cross on Oak Island? What's it doing there? If it wasn't there purposely by the people who, by the Knights Templar, I don't know. Yeah. So again, so many little tidbits, but yet they leave you with more questions.
It's the conspiracy ball, the interconnecting red lines. There's so many different things and so many different ways that all this stuff can go.
Yep. So many different theories, but one of them's got to be true, or maybe bits and pieces of all of them, or several of them are going to be true. But we got to get to the bottom of it for certain.
Right. That was my other point too. I want to say, why does it have to be one? Why can't it be multiple sources?
Yep.
If we have multiple different signs for multiple different cultures or groups of people, why can't it be all of them?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it could be bits and pieces of all of them that come together to tell the story. And I hope that we get to that. I hope that Oak Island, the team, I know Rick is very dedicated to finding the answers. I said this before, but we'd love to have them find, treasure on the island. We'd love to have them, find the Ark of the Covenant, even though finding it means that we're at the end times. But they said it will come, it will be discovered, it will be found when it's needed. And I'm thinking, oh man, I don't want to be needing it right now. So hopefully it doesn't get found for a while. And I know Vanessa Lucido, who owns Rock Equipment, she was, when she was putting the caissons down, she was like, I don't want to be the one that cuts it in half, and releases everything or finds it better, because that means that we're at end times.
When they took during the one drilling operation, they supposedly pushed down the
chapel vault.
Yeah, the chapel vault.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, come on. You're so close, and just pushed it away.
Yeah, that's what they're thinking, because they were up against a resistance that kind of slowly eased up. So they're thinking they were on the edge of it, and they were pushed it out of the way with that one caisson. And then, oh my goodness.
That's going to be so frustrating.
But you're off an inch, you're off a mile in that sort of thing. So, but anyway, interesting stuff. But I hope that they come to some answers, and we've got to know. We've got to know. I think that's why it's engulfed so many people around the world watching this show, because we really want to know the who, what, why, where, and when. And, that's what I want to know. And if they find treasure, great. But I want some answers. I truly want answers, and I know that they do too. So anyway, and I'm glad you guys are doing this. You're out there looking too, and that's neat, because the graphic, the demographic, I think, for Curse of Oak Island is actually older people like me. But it's good to see that that the history of this is intriguing to someone like yourself, a younger person like yourself. That's good, and that's what it's all about, to continue the research. Maybe you'll be out there digging one day.
That's the goal.
Yeah,
I'd love to get to that point.
Oh man, me too. I'd love to be out there. Oh, but yeah, this has been fun. But yeah, a lot of questions, and I know you guys will continue this, and maybe we'll have some more stuff we can talk about down the road one day.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for coming on, Jeff. I really appreciate it. And to everybody who is watching and out there enjoying the show, stay tuned for some exciting upcoming interviews. Like I was saying, we're gonna try to have Gretchen on pretty soon, and then I don't want to spoil too much, but we do have some more exciting interviews after that. Scott and Janet, one of them. And Jeff, you have any final comments or stuff you want to share before we wrap it up?
No, that's pretty much it. Just I'd say just continue what you're doing and keep this going, because it's good stuff. And I know you're doing other history stuff, not just about Oak Island and that, but this is a good one to dig into. And if you find some answers, you come to me and let me know, and I'll bring you on my show and we'll talk about it there. All right?
Oh yeah,
it's a deal. Thanks
for
again.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I enjoyed doing this with you.